Hello, everybody. Welcome back, or welcome if you're new. But that today might be a good day to show you all one of the ways that I actually read for myself. So, a more common way to read tarot, maybe not common, but I know a lot of people that do it, is to use tarot as a way to interpret your dreams. And I have been working very closely with the aptly titled Dreamkeepers Tarot lately, and I thought um, today would be a good day to do that because I had a weird one last night. So, if that is interesting to you, grab a drink and settle in, and we'll talk about it. So, I will not lie to you. I consider myself a fairly intuitive person. I think anyone who reads tarot would call themselves intuitive to some degree, but I don't really have a lot of dreams. Well, I'm sure I have dreams, but I don't remember them very much. And so when I do have a dream that stands out enough for me to remember, I take note of it. And I have only recently gotten into dream interpretation. So it's still something that I'm learning about. Tarot has been a fun way, an interesting way too, to kind of unpack the more psychological things that may be happening. I'm a pretty rational person. If I have a crazy dream, I'm usually pretty good at pinpointing what's happening in my life to have caused the dream. I do believe to an extent that our dreams are just our brains, defragging, for lack of a better word. We're kind of making space on our hard drives. But I also cannot dismiss the fact that there are people out there who have dreams that are like prophetic in nature. And I would never want to diminish the experience of individuals who have those kinds of dreams. So I do think mine kind of fall more into the first category rather than the prophetic category, at least so far. Definitely with the dream I had last night. I hope it's more of a psychological thing instead of prophecy. But tarot has just been really useful for me in helping uncover those hidden things that are going on in my mind. So I will tell you about the dream now while I shuffle. So, oh, Queen of Pentacles. That's fun to see. I had a dream that my husband and I were struggling, trying to reach out to family and friends in the midst of some kind of apocalyptic event. I don't want to say apocalyptic, it felt more like a wartime situation or the aftermath of a war. There was definitely a sense of dread. There was a sense of loss. There was a sense of kind of feeling scrambled. You have dreams and some of them you remember like word for word how it happened like a movie. This is one where there's kind of like back and forth images and um I remember the feeling more than anything. That's usually how it works for me with dreams. I remember how I felt during the dream, but it very much felt like we were in some kind of like national catastrophe crisis and there was limited access to phones. Technology was still existed. We still had like electricity power, but it was very much like a kind of paranoid feeling of not wanting to use those tools. A sense of like Big Brother almost, definitely like mass surveillance happening. And I think nuclear war was at play. I mean, very like grounded in like, I think, very real worries that we um all probably have to some extent in this day and age, unfortunately. I could get political. I could go on and on and on, and I do in real life, but for the sake of this tarot tutorial, I'm not going to do that. But needless to say, I think I don't have to explain anxiety around that. And I think any dreams that I may be having that are related to war, to surveillance, I think they are to an extent a product of very real fears, just made, manifest in the very literal sense, like in a dream. So that's not really surprising the more I sit on it, but it did freak me out a lot. So let's see if there's something else going on with the dream that I can work on. So the spread that I like to use, I like to keep things simple for this sort of reading because I tend to get lost in the sauce quite a bit. And I like to follow Kelly Ann Maddox's advice, which is to give every card a job. So the first card I'm going to lay down is going to speak to the overall message theme of the dream. Like what is the point? Why did I have that dream? Just straight to it. What was the point of that? Second card is going to be any direct message that subconscious, ancestors, deity, whoever, you take this and make it yours, right? I'm going to use my subconscious today, or maybe my ancestors. I'm feeling subconscious, but you can absolutely replace subconscious with XYZ. Whatever makes sense for you and your practice, you take it and you use it. And then 3 is, what am I being called to do right now in this moment? As in, what can I do as a result of the dream? Or what is the dream asking me to work on in real life, in the physical world? So I'm going to cut the deck. Oops, 6 of Swords popping out. I always set an intention beforehand whether or not I will take fallouts, whether I will read reversals, whatever. I set that intention before I start shuffling. So today I've decided I will not read reversals, but I will take into account shadow for all of the cards. Face up, reverse, doesn't matter. They're getting the positive and the negative read, the shadow read and the not. And I'm going to cut the deck right here. So again, 1, overarching energy, message, theme, what have you, a direct message from my subconscious. And again, you can use ancestors, deity, whatever. And finally, the call to action, for lack of a better way to put it. So in the overall message, we have the Hermit. For a direct message, we have the 3 of Swords. And finally, for call to action, we have Death reversed. Okay. I'll turn that around since I'm not reading reversals, but I will keep that in consideration in my reading. So I'm going to sit with this for just a few moments. I'm going to take a sip of my water, look at it, and try to figure this out. So with the Hermit in the overall energy of the reading, of the dreams, excuse me, I feel like it could be that this dream came to me because I have been doing a lot of self-reflection and a lot of shadow work recently, and I think it has brought some things to the surface for me that has been there are just some uncomfortable truths about myself that I've been having to kind of learn to reckon with and walk with. And that has been hard. I think certainly there is a level of feeling unprepared and needing to retreat to try to figure out what I can do in the midst of everything that's going on. I've felt the need to kind of become a hermit almost. And again, along with that has come just a lot of vulnerable discoveries about myself and my nature and who I am. And I've been working with that. And so, very possible that this work has caused some anxiety that has just sort of unsettled me and untethered me. The message from the subconscious, I think, kind of feeds into this. Not only, has there been shadow work involved for myself, but I've also been really struggling with kind of the cruelty of the world. I've been processing a lot of news lately, and again, I'm not going to linger on politics today because that's another video, but grappling with, again, the nature of like white supremacy and harm that has been caused by people who look like me, by my own family, ancestors, by my place in this hierarchy. And then, again, with like the things that don't have anything to do with me elsewhere in the world, things that don't necessarily have like a direct link to my line, but like the feeling of powerlessness I've been feeling in regard to not being able to change things, or rather efforts that I've put forth to change things, and how hopeless it can seem. And then call to action with death here, it was in reversed, which means that there is a resistance to the change, right? I think the message there is to kind of allow myself to surrender into how uncomfortable it feels, how uncomfortable it can be to go through these cycles, these feelings, the unpacking, right? And I've done this before, but the nature of this work is that we're always uncovering uncomfortable truths about ourselves. And it's cyclical. We have to essentially, right? Like we have to die to become new. It's very, again, very cyclical. This work, the spiritual work, it's not always easy. It can be very, very hard to do. So that was surprisingly heavy. I feel like I kind of just unloaded on you guys. I apologize. I'm going to pull a few more cards now, just so that way, that all makes sense to me, by the way. I'm going to show you a few other ways, a few other spreads that you can use to hopefully maybe this will kind of lighten the video a little bit, but I can also show you ways to be more analytical with like the dream itself, right? So next one I'm going to show you, and you can combine this one with the last spread and make like a 6-card spread. I'm just not going to do that for the sake of room here. So the next card here is going to be symbols to investigate as far as like traditional dream interpretation stuff goes. Okay, so like whenever I lay down this card and I look at it, I'm going to take what I actually like visually see, and I may or may not necessarily interpret it with the traditional tarot meaning. For the most part, what I like to do, I just like to look at the image, see what I physically see. Like if I see a white horse, I'm going to investigate what does a white horse mean in dream interpretation. It's that simple. So, symbols to investigate. The next card is something perhaps in the dream that I'm overlooking, maybe a piece of the dream that I don't remember now that I'm awake. Something that will overall, something that I'm just not recognizing that will contribute further to my understanding of the dream. And then the final card is how to, I'm trying to think of how to word this, guys. How to release the discomfort. So it's kind of like call to action, but it's a little more rooted in like, how can I immediately let go of the feeling that I have? Sometimes it's a happy dream. And if that's the case, you can kind of tweak it to be like, how can I sit with this feeling? How can I make use of the emotion, basically? Again, like call to action, but a little more kind of rooted in your heart emotional space. So, symbols to investigate. Something that I am overlooking, something that I may have forgotten from the dream. And finally, how to ease the emotional distress. How can I sit with this emotion in a productive way, for better or worse? Okay. King of Pentacles. Interesting. Okay. Queen of Wands. Eight of Wands. All right. So for symbols that we want to look into with as far as like dream interpretation goes, we see a tree back here. He's holding a coin. He's wearing a suit. He's clearly like a king. Well, he is. He's the King of Pentacles, but an older man, maybe a crown. Leaves, branches, like the tree. It all speaks to like the King of Pentacles stability, right? And that's ultimately what he is about. He's a master of stability, finance, more all of the pentacles things. That's what he does. There's a castle in the background here. Almost looks like a river behind him. I think that's a river. A river leading into the horizon. It could be that, and this is just a hunch because I don't actually know the spiritual meaning of any of those small things, like as far as dreams go, because it is kind of a different animal, dream interpretation, but it does make me feel like he, as like a symbolic reference, is telling me that this dream, the message is almost like to help build stability in me. So if, God forbid there ever were a catastrophic situation, I would feel more prepared to protect myself, my family, my friends. It could also be a call to be perhaps more generous. That's more of a Six of Pentacles thing with the giving and the receiving, but I like to think that the King of Pentacles is generous with his money, with his time. It could be telling me like, hey, if you're so concerned about all of these things, why don't you volunteer? Why don't you donate? Do more of that, find ways to invest in what is bothering you so much, how you can healthily contribute to a solution. So something to think about. I'll look into it. Okay, something that I'm overlooking, the Queen of Wands. There's something about her mask here that she's holding. And the wings, how she's almost covering herself, wrapping herself in her wings. And she's looking up at the sky almost. It feels like I could be overlooking the fact that I have more power in this than I feel like I do. I'm not helpless. The Queen of Wands is maybe like the least helpless queen ever. I mean, none of them are helpless, right? But it could be that I am overlooking my own power in this situation, or that there have been things in life recently that have made me feel powerless, but I'm not. um, there are things that I can do maybe that can help me overcome the feeling that I have, that heaviness, right? And in the shadow work, in unlearning and uncovering things, I think sometimes we do feel a little powerless. It's easy to feel that way, especially if we're also trying to make sense of the world as it is and how to navigate it and how to be good allies and how to be good friends, family members, how to talk to people about the issues that are hard, you know? Sometimes if you look around and just look at everything happening and you feel like your conversations with people like don't really go anywhere, that you can't really make any changes, it's so easy to remember how much agency we do have, and the fact that like yes, we are making a difference even if we can't always see it on the surface. So that could be something I'm overlooking. And then for how to sit with the emotions, or how to kind of minimize the distress I feel. The Eight of Wands almost feels kind of like a card of let them feelings come, let them flow, but don't wallow in them. They move fast, right? For me, anyway, like I know feelings are not forever for me. I wake up mad and then 2 days, or not 2 days, like 2 hours later, I'm a different person. So, um, I can sit with the feeling by not really sitting with it and processing it, letting it run its course, and getting up and finding a way to find my voice again. So that feels a little less heavy, I think. But yeah, that is how I do dream interpretation. I'll show you that spread one more time. First card is, gosh, I'm thinking back to the first pull that I did. Overall energy message of the dream. Direct message from subconscious, deities, ancestors, what have you. The call to action, or what I can do because of this dream, or what is the dream calling me to do in this moment. Symbols to investigate or recognize. I hope you all can see that. If not, there are symbols to investigate in terms of dream interpretation. Something that you may have forgotten from the dream since you woke up, or something about the dream that you are overlooking, failing to see. And then the final card is what to do with the emotions, feelings, how to sit with those emotions that came from the dream as a result. So there you go, guys. I hope that was helpful. That's just one way that I like to do dream interpretation. There are other spreads. It does kind of depend on the dream itself. I do kind of just make a custom spread. This one is kind of like my go-to. I usually just do variations of this spread. So I can't say that I took credit for it. I don't know for sure, honestly. Like, I feel like pretty much every spread that I make, I call it original, but then I think about it and I'm kind of think like it had to come from somewhere, right? So if you want to use this spread, by all means, go for it. I don't care if you credit me or not, because let's be honest, I don't really know that it's all mine. Um, it's hard to be unique with tarot spreads. So unless it's just a very highly like customized specific spreads. So by all means, knock yourself out with it. Let me know how it works for you. I'm so curious to see what you all are, or to hear what you're all dreaming about and what your cards say about it. So I will leave you with that. I hope you have a great rest of your week. I hope you have a great weekend. Stay cool out there. It is hot. And I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.